Here we go. Hey, Keith, how are you?
I'm good. I got caught. I was trying to figure out which way to point, and I think we went live too quick.
I'm not even trying. I'm not trying this week. It's been a week, so I'm avoiding that. But it's good to see your face. I'm excited about the show.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, I'm awesome. I don't know what we're all gonna, but hopefully the sun comes out. I'm Stacy Chevalier, and I run Washington State for Loan Depot, and I'm here with my co-host Keith Pitch.
Yes, Keith Pitch, licensed loan originator, finance coach here. I'm a Washington native, and we're super excited to look south today and talk to our real estate experts down in Pierce County and over there on the Peninsula. So we got two amazing real estate agents. Before we bring them in really quick, I always want to touch on where rates are. Everybody asks us every day, every second, like, where's rates? Where's rates? So just to share a common resource, this is Freddie Mac's mortgage rate survey that anybody type in Freddie Mac mortgage rates and this survey will pop up. So just our trend has been pretty steady here over the last few weeks. We've now gone 3 weeks that the 30-year has stayed at or below 3.30. So it's still just a really great time to refinance, buy a house, buy a second house. I mean, why not? So just wanted to help everybody out with those informative numbers. And really, we're going to turn it back to real estate and what's happening right now down south in Pierce County and over there on the Peninsula. So Stacy, who do we have today?
Yeah, so today we have Aaron Thomas and Dan Spurlock. These guys and I go back quite a ways. Probably, I know with Aaron, he was my first agent I worked with when I was a loan originator. So 20 years. Dan, I don't know, close to that, I'm sure is the same. So good you guys have you on the show. Experts for sure. Years of experience, have built large teams, and just have a lot of knowledge to share with our communities. And you know, there's so much going on around the country, and every micro area kind of is in a different, experiencing something different. So it's important to have an expert of where you're actually looking for real estate. And so we're excited to have Aaron Thomas and Dan Spurlock on.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So first off, where are you guys geographically?
Where are you geographically? Sorry, Keith, you cut out a tad, but
am I cutting out?
Yeah, let's start with Dan. Where are you geographically?
So I live in Gig Harbor, and we cover a really big area. We cover all of Kitsap County. That's where I grew up, and then obviously Gig Harbor, and then pretty much all of Pierce County as well. So I'm kind of in the middle of the two counties, and so we cover both of them.
Nice. Okay, good. And what about you, Aaron?
So we're central to kind of South Pierce County. So I live in DuPont, and so we go down all the way to Chehalis, and then we go up to all the way as far north as Seattle. But generally speaking, we're right around Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
And then in our team, we have a team out in Silverdale. So that's our Peninsula team. And then we have a crew in Puyallup and Olympia. So that's kind of our South Sound locations as well. So we're really familiar with working in those markets too. So I'm curious to know if there is an impact on anything going on with the military and what you guys are seeing in real estate.
You want to take it? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's definitely an impact. So we have a whole lot of clients in our kind of queue, buyers that we're working with, sellers that we're working with. And the Department of Defense has issued kind of a stop move. So people have orders, but they're not permitted to kind of relocate at the moment. And so that stop move right now is through the end of June, I believe. And so they're reevaluating that all the time. It seems as though it's going to stick from the people that I'm speaking with. And so people are kind of looking, but they're not able to move. So it's locking up some of the inventory for sure.
And for us, we're seeing the hesitancy of should they buy now. So we've got one couple that coming from Florida, and they actually bought and then they canceled their contract with the builder because when all this happened, they weren't sure. They took a break, kept looking, and then they just actually made an offer, and we're pending on something in the hopes or the plans that they will be here in July. So they're doing everything from there. I've got another one that's coming from Jacksonville that we should be writing an offer today. Same thing though, they can't be here, they can't travel, but they just know that it's gonna end at some point, and so they don't want to get caught, scrambling for a home last minute. So they're looking to buy now and just do it remotely.
Sellers in this situation, are they being generous? I don't know if the word is generous, but I'm going to use it with the contracts. So, giving earnest money back if they can't close the sale, things like that. Is there any special things happening on that?
There is. There's a new addendum they actually created, the addendum FM, that covers some of those things if it's delayed because of this kind of what happens. And so we add that addendum so sellers and everyone knows kind of upfront if something happens, this is what we're going to do. And yes, I've seen, and Aaron will speak to it too, the sellers being a little more flexible because everybody knows kind of what's going on. So.
And I'm sorry, that addendum, is it specific to the military or is it a COVID addendum?
No, it's a COVID addendum.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not specific to the military.
Okay, that's the standard one.
Yeah, but for example, the builder we had, Sound Built, actually, they backed out and technically didn't have a reason. It was before that addendum was in there. No questions asked. They refunded their earnest money. Done. Totally get it. And it was a done deal. So they were good to work with.
That's great. What else have you guys pivoted within your business as far as either listing or getting those buyers out to these houses, or how are you showing houses right now?
I think the showings are still going on. For sellers, we have created a process just so that they feel safe if they're living in the house. So we found that we've had to go out and get the supplies and put them right in front of the house and make it really available and post it there, because everybody's got different opinions on whether they're comfortable with masks and gloves, and some people care, some people don't. And so what we're finding is the only way we can truly protect the seller is if we mandate it. If they want to look at that listing, and that seller wants this, that's the only way to control it and make it 100% safe.
Do you put that in your listing that you have this available when people come out?
Yeah, so we tried to put it in the listing first, and most of the realtors followed the rules, but not all of them. So then we took it up another step, which is to post it right in front of their face on the door, right? So we've got it in several places, and recently I started actually sending them messages prior to them going out to the house just to ensure that they knew, because we had a situation where the seller's actually not in the house, but they're on the site, they're on the property. And so they were letting us know that there were some agents in there that weren't quite following those rules. So we're finding that we have to.
So we had this discussion about 5 weeks ago in the North Sound, and there were actual rules. Are those rules still in place from the NMLS of like one person at a time going through the home? Okay.
There's rules, but they aren't as aggressive as what some sellers want or would demand. And so
like face masks are not required. That's not a rule?
No, not currently.
Okay. It's
limited amount of people in the property, so no more than 2 people in the property. It's some pretty basic rules. It's not shoe covers or anything like that. It's really just distancing recommendations or rules. Well, they're rules.
Okay. And for those watching, Aaron does some lives on his Facebook page that go into more detail of just his team and what they do. So I'm sure you're welcome to find him. And I know he did a live yesterday on that specific topic that dives more into that. But what are you seeing, Dan, in your marketplace for that?
So same kinds of things with sellers preparing the house, and we have to have one at a time with me. So the agent obviously always has to be there. We are, we have adapted to the virtual home buying program. So we have a virtual home buying program on our website. You actually can choose to tour a home, or you can tour it virtually. So we will go, we've got Astro Room, which will do a 360. In 15 minutes and do a 360 video of the house. So we have that we offer. These things have been in place for a long time. So the Matterports of the world and the different cameras, but it's so funny now that this has happened, their stock is going way up because people are really relying. It's like Zoom, right? Zoom has been around for a long time, but all of a sudden everybody's using it. And so that's the same with real estate. We're doing, again, we always did 3D tours for our listings, but now more agents are doing that because it's so important. So we're doing a lot of different things to make it easier for sellers and buyers to kind of see the home and kind of make sure, hey, is this going to work for me before I go and risk this or that. Before it was kind of like, hey, let's go in and look, let's drive around and look at some homes. And now it's more like, let's really get deep into each one and make sure that, it's something we like. And that 3D, video camera, whatever you use, is incredibly realistic. You can definitely, weed out some homes based on looking at that. And of course, if there isn't one, if the listing agent doesn't have that, we will go out and provide that 3D tour for our buyers. So,
yeah, I love the comment that this technology has been around for quite some time. And now, just based on life, we have to embrace it, right? So same on the lending side, we've been, wanting to do, e-closings and that for a long time and trying to get people to partner with us on that. And it has sped up a lot of the technology that we are now using probably by 2 to 5 years. And we're never going to go back. We're going to keep closing loans this way. So what are you guys seeing what do you think maybe we'll never go back? Like, do you think people will be more comfortable doing this virtual, looking at homes going forward? Or do you think, what are the changes you're seeing? Whether it's appraisals, now we're doing drive-by appraisals, desktop appraisals, all sorts of different things. So just curious your guys' insight on that.
I think you take both. I mean, you got both sides of the coin, right? So you've got the marketing aspect of a seller, and then you've got the accessibility aspect for a buyer going through a property. And they're kind of marrying each other up, like Dan was speaking to, because you have agents now that in the past didn't embrace video, because there's a difference between photos of a listing and video where you can see how all the photos come together, right? The floor plan. And we have been selling homes to people out of the country for a long time and selling homes for people out of country. So we've had to go to properties with our camera equipment, and a lot of times it's just the iPhone, and explain things and walk through the property, whether it's FaceTime or just creating a video for them to make them comfortable to be able to consider making a purchase sight unseen or being serious about a property. So what I'm seeing is agents are embracing more of those things to help the consumer along, whether they're a buyer or seller. And it's a good thing. It's really upping the game, I think. And anybody that is not willing to do those things right now, that is a real estate agent, they're gonna be weeded out of this industry, I believe, in the future. So it's
they're the blockbuster, right? They're gonna close up overnight. Yeah, we definitely see that on our side too. But interesting, I think it's really important for our viewers to find people like Aaron and Dan that have been doing this, that know how to do it and can do it well. I have personal experience of trying to buy a home sight unseen in another state. And when I had the ability before I signed contracts to fly out there, and the houses were not what they looked like online. I mean, one backed up against the major freeway, and the agent didn't tell me that. I mean, could have just been on the freeway. So definitely do your research and find a team that, can show these homes virtually. And, just in an honest way, so you really know what you're looking at. So definitely appreciate you guys and your team's work on this.
Well, and you speak to a good point. It's not always about the house. It's about the neighborhood, and it's about the street, and it's about what's in proximity to that property for that consumer potential buyer. And so being thorough with that is the only way to prevent for the buyer potential cancellation when they do fly out and they see this isn't what I expected. And now what about my earnest money? Can I back out of this? That sort of thing. So, I mean, and Dan can speak to this too. We don't ever want to see somebody go through something like that. And that's really the only way to prevent it if they are sight unseen. But to that point, imagine if you are needing to move and you are immunocompromised and you're very afraid of COVID and you need to buy, you have to, there's something driving that. Now, how are you going to do that? If you have this type of technology and a realtor that's embracing that, you can still make that move safely.
Yeah, definitely. We want to, definitely share that real estate is open. We're open in Washington State. And, if you do need to move or want to move, there's people out there to help you and know how to do it safely. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up.
I want to chime in here really quick and kind of pivot a little bit. And Dan and Aaron, we were talking about this earlier. I've been pre-approving a lot of buyers right now. They're coming back out, and there's this perception that there's a bunch of inventory on the market, and that there's deals to be had because of the situation that we're in. And can you guys just speak to what the state of the inventory is out there for your guys' areas?
Yeah. So for us, it's low. Yeah, it's low. It's an interesting market because before this all happened, inventory was still low, but there were a lot of buyers. And so they were seeing a lot of multiple offers. And what we're seeing now is there's definitely less buyers, but there's still even really low inventory. So what we're finding is I know it can never be a good buyers and sellers market, right? But the truth is inventory is low. So that's great for sellers. I mean, that's supply and demand. Everybody understands that. But for buyers, you're not quite as many multiple offer situations as you were before because there's still some buyers sitting on the sidelines for whatever reason, fear of COVID, job loss, whatever. So it's actually a good time to get out there as a buyer as well. And of course, as you guys know, the interest rates are historically low. So it's kind of a nice little healthy market. But overall, absolutely, inventory is still way down. And we're seeing that, I think, everywhere. And Aaron was sharing stats with us earlier about that. So,
yeah, Aaron, do you want to pull up that? Do you have the?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, in a
market?
nutshell, most counties, most of the Tri-County area, and even up north, we're seeing anywhere from like a week over week, month over month. Since COVID, we're seeing anywhere from like a 25 to a 50% drop, depending on county, in the available homes for sale. And so, if there's normally 10 homes out there and you take 3 away right on the spot, it's getting tougher, right? It's great for sellers. But to Dan's point with buyers, we are seeing that there are also less buyers out in the market than there were prior to COVID. So let me share the screen and you guys can get a feel for what I'm talking about here.
So real quick, while he's pulling that up, I'll tell you the last couple of weeks I have seen a shift when the plans to open up, the phases were released. I instantly saw an increase in showings for our listings. It was like before everybody was like, oh, are we going to close down for 6 months, a year, 2 weeks? What's going on? And when they released those plans, like, okay, we're opening, but we're opening in phases. Instantly, our listings started getting more showings. We started pendings and just more activity. So it's changed very recently. But anyways, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, everything changed when they were deciding whether we were going to shut down or not prior to that. And we saw a big rush of people run out and try to buy and get under contract. And we saw a rush of inventory as well. And then when they issued the order for everyone, it just sort of slowed down because for a period of time, realtors weren't considered to be able to go and show properties and that sort of thing. So
yeah, for like the first week, you guys were in that group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see any contracts fall out due to just different restrictions on lending or unemployment or fear of unemployment, anything like that with consumers you were working with?
Not personally. I know it happened a lot throughout the country. I've heard lots of stories, but personally, no. Everybody we were working with still had the job security loan programs were fine, and we ended up closing. So.
Yeah,
So what is our days on market right now? Do we know?
Depends on where. We're still seeing every house that we list for the most part. We're still seeing list the home midweek, show the home over the weekend, offers on Monday or Tuesday. So when the house is priced correctly, prepared correctly, and positioned correctly, meaning like it's marketed effectively, it's usually going to sell on that 5th or 6th day. However, that realtor kind of, whatever process they follow that they'd agree upon with their buyer. Now, Dan can speak to this too, but we see some of them sell in a day. The average market time is still higher because you have those houses where people list and for whatever reason, they don't have a good strategy, or maybe it's a distress sale or something like that. And that house is sitting on the market for 6 to 9 months and it's affecting the numbers. That's why you don't really get a good picture. I think you take a strong listing agent and you ask them, how many homes have you listed in the last 3 months? And what percentage of those homes sold in the first week? And I think that they would tell you that percentage is very high. I know for us, it's probably 90%, 9 out of 10.
That's a great question to ask. That's a very good question.
And the ones that aren't are the ones that are at a higher price point, or maybe they have issues in terms of condition, or maybe there's a tenant in the property making things difficult to show, some sort of reason. Dan can speak to it too.
Are you guys doing anything specific so that you are winning those multiple offer situations?
Yeah, I think in the end, that doesn't change much. If you've ever been in multiple offer situations, there's things you can do, and there's certain strengths to the offer, and you've got to be strong in all of them, or most of them, or at least one of them. And price is always key, right? I mean, the most money, that's number one. But there's other things too, earnest money, higher earnest money, shorter inspection timeframes. That's a big deal. I mean, the contract, the purchase and sale agreement has some of the biggest get out of jail free cards of any contract. And so, you offer twice as much for the home, but I can back out the next day. So it's kind of like, well, that was great, but I needed to close. And so the point is, you can shorten contingencies, higher earnest money, letters. Some people are doing letters, which, some people are for and against that, but just letters about the buyer, and how serious they are and how much they love the home, because that's important to a seller. A lot of times is they want someone who loves their home as much as they do. So yeah, I think it's the same kind of things we've been doing. And Aaron probably can say that as well.
Yeah, I think it's getting on the same page with a potential buyer to let them know what their options are, to be aggressive, to compete if the home is going to have multiple offers. We're seeing a lot of people on our listings, other agents. Sometimes it's a communication thing, understanding what the seller's needs are and then matching your offer up as much as possible to match those sellers' needs. Meaning, maybe the seller wants to move out right away. Maybe the seller doesn't need to move out for 4 months. And so there's options there to make the offer look better that are more important to that seller than money. And so we actually created a list of 35 different points of order of importance as to, and of course, first thing is going to be, offer the best possible price. Second thing is going to be, and then just go on down the list and say, let's get on the same page. What are you comfortable with doing? here are the pros and the cons of this, here are the pros and the cons of that. And because right now to win, you either need to get really aggressive with price and terms, or some combination of those with the communication with the listing broker. Sometimes it depends on who the lender they're working with. Is the lender communicating with the listing agent, and then the listing agent telling the seller? So it can sound very complex, but there's a way to break it all down so that you can win. And sometimes it's okay not to win, by the way, because sometimes the winner is like just paying way too much money. So, I mean,
Yeah.
That's the thing, is everybody's focused on price. So the seller sets the price. Is it worth the price? Is that price a good deal? These are the things that we don't talk about. This isn't buying from Walmart here. It's
Right.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing interesting things on the appraisal front. So next week we will have an appraisal team on to just kind of talk about what they're also seeing out there. But to your point, yeah, some people are listing pretty high right now. So so we have about 5 minutes left. Keith, any final questions, thoughts you want to get out there?
So when is the tidal wave of listings coming? We've stayed at or below about a month and a half worth of inventory. Is there going to be a summer push? What do you guys think?
Ah, man, I wish I had my crystal ball. I do think
there's pent-up demand.
There will be. I mean, obviously, we're going to be back to normal in the world at some point, right? I mean, we just are. Is it next week? Is it next year? I don't know. Is it somewhere in between? But I think when that happens, I think you will see that kind of wave of new listings come on. But I also think with that, there's going to be a wave of new buyers as well. So to me, it's just going to, do that kind of thing, and it'll be overall kind of the same. I think that's my prediction anyway.
Yeah, I think the same. I think that our typical spring months in our inventory, and if anybody wants to actually geek out on stats, feel free to get in touch with me, and I can show you this instead of telling you anecdotally. But the reality is our typical spring didn't happen with real estate. Yeah. It was down whatever percentage you want to call it, 25%, 40%, depending on where you're at. There's still people that need to move. There are people that have lost their jobs that will need to move because of that. And that will happen later. But what I see happening is we have to make up for that lost time and ground. And so instead of having a market in the spring and having a market in September when kids go back to school, if they even do, normally that happens.
Don't say that, Aaron.
Don't say that.
I feel like we're going to have sustained activity instead of spikes in the spring and spikes in the fall, sustained amount of real estate activity all the way probably until the holidays, if not beyond.
That's interesting. Yeah. And it'll be curious to watch your guys' market specifically, I think, because there's going to be less people going back into the cities. It's just, right, that's a fact. We all know those of us that can work remotely are working remotely. So those industries, and we're more productive than we've ever been, according to the stats. And so there may not be a need to spend extra money to be close to a city center. And people might be moving, further out to get, whether it's more property or just to get away from the city or to get into better schools. So I think you guys are going to see a lot of growth in your communities in specific areas.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
I want to follow the point that you said, Aaron, that depending on where we're at, you're somewhere 20 and 40% off as far as number of units sold, but that manifested itself into the price of real estate coming down. Is that correct?
We haven't seen any prices drop whatsoever. What I've seen in looking at all the different properties that we've evaluated, because we do constant property evaluations and equity checks for people, is that there are some areas where the activity has slowed down, enough to where it's affected the average price in that area, but not a significant drop. So we're talking maybe not enough high dollar transactions happening to where if it were 301, I see it be 299, That's not a significant drop. That's an anomaly statistically based off what's going on. So I can't speak to King County. I can't speak to much higher way up when you go way up in the, more of an entry level luxury market. But down with us normal people selling homes under $1 million, we're not seeing much change.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to drive home, because there's a perception that they only hear the consumers are hearing the one stat that we're off as far as selling real estate. So then they immediately equate that to
price.
Prices must be coming down. And it's not a correlating statistic. So no.
Or they're getting national statistics that are bringing in, places that were hit a little bit harder for, vacation cities and things like that. And it's not necessarily what is happening here in the Puget Sound.
Yeah,
true.
So we forgot, Keith, in the very beginning. I feel so bad. We didn't announce our donation to the local food bank. So thank you all for supporting us and following along. We hope we're providing good information out to the community. Definitely please reach out to myself or Keith, Aaron, and Dan. We are all here to help you guys navigate through this and have a good experience in the home buying process. Last week, we did talk about education at home. We will follow that up in August when we know where we're at. But we had 241 views, so Keith and I will be donating $241 to the local food banks, and just really appreciate you guys' support and want to help our community. So any follow-up comments from the rest of the gang?
Good
no, it's super good to see your guys' faces after all this time.
We're only 20 years older,
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, and next week we're going to be talking about appraisals, and we'll have a few appraisers on here with us. So if you have any questions or anything you want to ask an appraiser, tune in next Thursday at 10 a.m.
Yeah, if anybody is out there maybe wanting to buy, if they want a list of some strategies on how to win offers, reach out to me.
And
we'll put Dan and Aaron's information and team's information up in the final post so that you guys can easily find them. But thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.